New World Order for Dummies, the meaning of life, why are we here? I started doing these videos and labelling them for dummies as I knew many people hadn't the foggiest idea as to what was really going on in the world. Little did I realise that even now in 2019, the majority still refuse to believe that our day-to-day reality has been hijacked by a few. Even more disturbing is the fact that not only are these people quite content to accept the present reality of more and more restrictions, more surveillance, more taxes, genetically modified food, less privacy, mandatory vaccinations, chemtrails, G5 radiation, etc., etc., they will fight to protect the masters who put the system in place. The best prison is one without bars. There the people will not try and escape. At the moment, that's all it is, a prison for your mind, of which I'll expand on here. But eventually, it literally will be an open-air prison where you'll be tracked by the chip in your hand, and only the people with the right social credit scores will be allowed to do what their government permits them to do. This is happening right now in China, and it'll soon be a reality in the rest of the world, including where you live. Now, if people cannot even grasp that the lines that we see in our skies are not natural, they certainly will not entertain this notion that I'm about to present here. Most of us have wondered why we're here, what's the meaning of life, what's it all about, etc. Well, the sole reason that we exist as we do today, are you ready for it? Is purely to serve and obey an alien race that has deceived us for millennia. Royal bloodlines around the globe literally see us being here just for their own amusement, their sustenance, and most of all, their labour slaves, and they have exerted the 100% ownership rights of every one of us. Here I will explain how this has come to pass, but please remember that I'm not CNN or the BBC, nor am I Stephen Fry, so it would serve some narrow-minded people well to go away now, and that way you can use these 20 minutes or so to do whatever it is you do on the internet. Okay. Many thousands of years ago, the earth and all its inhabitants lived a harmonious, balanced, peaceful life. It was written in the Bible as the Garden of Eden. Homo sapiens lived longer, they could communicate with plants and animals alike, they could perform levitation, communicate telepathically, and understood that all things were interconnected. They knew that their bodies were just vehicles for experiencing this consciousness that we call the universe, points of attention within infinite awareness. That was a time before the moon. Yes, that round thing you see in the sky every night, well, that wasn't always there. Most of what we've been taught since birth has been a watered down version of events at best, and at worst, propaganda that only serves the elite's agenda. You have to remember that history is just that, his story, and the victor always got to write it. And the victor was always part of the royal command, so pretty much all the history that we've been taught up to now isn't necessarily the truth, unless it serves the agenda. The moon arrived thousands of years ago and housed a race of beings known as the Anunnaki. And basically what this race did was hijack the information field that was being fed to Earth, and using the moon as a kind of satellite, they inverted it. Now, for this to make any sense, you have to understand that the universe is just waveform energy, and we as humans decode this into electrical energy. Think of zeros and ones as information on a computer that only shows up as pictures and videos once decoded on the screen. Before it's decoded, it just remains electrical impulses. Well, our body is basically a biological computer that decodes what is available to us in visible light. Now, this is fundamental to understanding how the universe works. Because of the inversion, the info we now receive is only picked up by the five senses, and that's why this is a prison for your mind. Picture a cat clawing at something that's invisible to us, or animals searching for higher ground before a tsunami, or cows that knows when it's going to rain. We used to have these senses and many, many more, but they have since been hidden from us by this inversion. Mainstream science, through quantum physics, has concluded that we can only access approximately 0.005% of what's actually in the universe, and even that's only what's available within the spectrum of visible light. Everything else is considered dark matter, but that doesn't mean that it's dormant. It's just that we as humans can't see it. There are many entities sharing that space, and some of them are the ones running your life. The Anunnaki, who are thousands of years ahead of us technologically, interbred with Homo sapiens, and the first hybrid alien humans were formed. These serpent-type reptilians were recorded by ancient civilizations throughout the globe, and once again it shows up in the Bible as a serpent who essentially was the catalyst for the end of paradise. Mesopotamia is thought to be the place where the first encounters happened, and so it's no coincidence that the UK-led wars in the Middle East are, amongst other things, to gain control over that land. The hybrids went about claiming authority to rule the land and the people, so all the kings and queens around the world were descendants of the alien bloodline. They expanded into Europe, Africa, Asia, etc., and through interbreeding made sure that all the royal bloodlines remained pure. When we get to around the time of Christ, the Roman Empire knew that the population was increasing, and so they implemented, amongst other things, divide and conquer tactics to keep the people ignorant of their true intentions. And these entities to this day fear that the regular citizens will figure out their history, and so do all they can to keep the people distracted. That seem familiar? You know what I mean? The news that you see every single day, there's always something happening, but it's always to keep you distracted from the bigger picture, for what's really going on. I was recently at a Mayan Temple in Mexico, and the guide, although missing out a few points, informs the public that this race was wiped out by the conquistadors, who were nothing more than the Catholic Church's enforcers, because they, like the Aztecs, Native Americans, Zulus, Aborigines, etc., knew the true nature of the universe, and so the royals could not have anyone understanding this. They needed to keep them ignorant so that they remained complacent and reliant on the government. Does this ringing any bells yet? If the people understood that we are all part of one consciousness, there would be no more wars, no racism, no destruction, and we could revert back to a time when it was essentially a paradise. But the elites have divided and conquered us to the point where everyone perceives conflict as the norm, yeah? That's all they've ever known. If you're hearing this for the first time, I understand that it's completely at odds with everything that you've been taught in school, but all the evidence is out there, so I implore you to wake up and see things for what they really are. And for the people that still refuse to believe that anything is amiss, you are exactly what the rulers want you to be, a brainwashed, subservient drone. Okay, how does that make you feel, yeah? Say after me, I am an indoctrinated, apathetic servant to the overlords. I will obey my TV, and anyone that says anything contrary to the official government version is nothing but a fool and an enemy. As people began to rebel against royalty in some parts of the world, they appeared on the surface in certain areas to be abolished, but in reality they just went underground, only to surface years later through secret societies as bankers, politicians, media moguls, etc. Did you know that Madonna and Tom Hanks, George Bush, well, the whole Bush family, they're related to the Queen, yeah? I mean, these people are not put in positions of power by accident. They do not care about the common man. They only care about total control. One of the ways they get any nourishment is from human sacrifice, and that's why paedophilia is so rampant amongst the elites. Hundreds of thousands of kids go missing every year in the US alone. So think about that for a minute. If that many go missing, surely that you would hear that a grave or bodies or skeletons were found, but all this takes place far underground. And the heads of the corporations that you think would prosecute or even report this activity are fully complicit. So of course the general public never get to hear about it. This is what I'm saying. All the heads of the major corporations now are compromised, and that's why they will only take on people that they control that way. So if you're waiting for the BBC to inform you, they won't. Anyone who reaches any level of authority have a decision to make. If they plan on furthering their career, then they must abide by the rules of the elite. Once they make a deal, they become blackmailable, and that's why it's hard to find many whistleblowers, and the whistleblowers that do come forward are generally eliminated. Even when true intentioned individuals come forward like Edward Snowden or the Dutch banker Ronald Bernard, the masses still can't accept information that isn't fed to them by their trusted source, i.e. the news, so they dismiss it as a conspiracy. Just Google Ronald Bernard and you will be horrified by what he has to report. One of the things that you have to remember is that these creatures are not like us, and I can't emphasise that enough. They do not possess empathy or conscience, and that's why it's so easy for them to engage in devastating cruelty without showing any signs of remorse. Once you understand that, you may be able to grasp that they need death and destruction to actually energise themselves. Before the inversion, love was the dominant frequency, but now it's horror and devastation. Why do you think there's so much suffering in the world? So many wars. It's not just to fulfill an agenda, it's also to energise the demons who are running the show from the shadows. Now that there's vast numbers of these hybrids, the final chapter is getting easier and easier to see. They openly promote depopulation through Agenda 2030, but again, because the masses can't comprehend anything other than the paradigm that's fed to them through their TV, they know that people like me, who are trying to open their eyes, will just be received with ridicule and contempt. But the next time you see someone revering the Queen of England or an ex-president, remember that behind closed doors, they see you as nothing more than cattle. As their numbers increase, the general public's choices dwindle, as few as 13 families now control more and more governments, media, big pharma, CIA, MI5, energy, internet banking, you name it, they control it. If you're not ready to accept that an alien race has semi-human people doing its bidding here on Earth, I get it, I fully understand. It took me over 10 years of research to get where I am now. But surely you must by now recognise that the world is only heading in one direction. One of constant fear, constant surveillance, censorship, restrictions, to the point where the UN will finally change its name to the New World Order. The Hunger Games and Black Mirror, etc. aren't fictitious pieces of cinema. Programs like that are doing exactly what they were designed to do. To program you into subconsciously preparing for a future without the day-to-day freedoms that you presently enjoy today. Anyway, please share, like and subscribe, as pretty soon videos like this will no longer be permitted, as freedom of speech is also being censored.